It's hard to find a more surreal setting. How quickly one call in 2020 would put this picturesque island at the center of mystery.
We lost our friend. We don't know where he had gone, and we're kind of worried that something happened to him.
A 911 plea to find a soldier who disappeared on this remote stretch of Barrier Islands off the North Carolina coast. But it's what happened hours before the call that has a family, a community, and even a member of Congress demanding answers.
I have a lot of questions.
Enrique Roman Martinez's childhood still has a way of putting a smile on the faces of his sister Griselda and his mom Maria. They sort through the memories in their Los Angeles area home. Roman Martinez was a fan of good food and video games. His sister says he also had a big heart.
He was the most kindest person in the whole world. Really shy, very, very shy. Well, he would literally get in trouble for other people and say it was him and not them.
Roman Martinez was 17 when his mom signed the papers at his urging, letting him join the military. He eventually became a paratrooper in the elite 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg, now called Fort Liberty. His sister says Enrique loved his first 2 years in the military, but then something changed.
He would never tell me if they were bullying him. He would just tell me that there was just a lot of things he didn't like. He would tell me he just wanted to come home, and I wanted to guide him the best way that I could as an older sister and tell him that he started it, he needs to stick it out and do his absolute best to the very end, even though he was miserable.
She had no idea the end would come so soon. In May 2020, Roman Martinez and a group of 7 Fort Liberty soldiers were camping here on the Cape Lookout National Seashore. It's a 56-mile stretch of islands reachable only by boat and known for wild horses and stunning vistas. But a few days into the trip, a member of that group of soldiers called 911, saying Roman Martinez had gone missing.
We all went to bed at 12:03. That's when we all decided to go to bed, and that is the last time we saw him.
When they woke up, the caller said Roman Martinez was gone. Records show that 911 call was made hours later in the evening. The Army says Roman Martinez's phone, wallet, and glasses were at the campsite. While the call sparked police to conduct a search, it wasn't until a week later, when a few miles away, Roman Martinez washed ashore. His head was the only body part found.
No lo entiende y no lo acepta.
His mom doesn't speak English, but some words don't need translating. She says she was stunned when she learned of her son's death. The gruesomeness of this case not only sent shockwaves here locally, but also around the country. And the outrage quickly turned to the Army's handling of the case.
Instead of treating it as, someone who could have gotten hurt, murdered, they treated it as he ran away, and he didn't run away. And I think that was the first thing that they did wrong.
The 911 caller alleged Enrique previously had suicidal tendencies, but Griselda says that wasn't true.
I certainly felt they were not doing enough.
Congresswoman Norma Torres represents the Los Angeles suburb where Enrique's family lives. She's the mom of a veteran. She's also a former 911 operator. She says there was poor communication between local law enforcement and the Army, which hurt the investigation.
What bothered you about the way that his death was investigated?
The silence. The silence from everyone, from his friends to the staff at the base who failed to reach out immediately to the family, to the local law enforcement who did not have, the know-how to investigate, this missing person. It took an act of a member of Congress to get divers out there.
Around a year and a half after Roman Martinez's remains were found, the Army labeled the unsolved homicide a cold case.
Were you surprised that his case was considered a cold case after just a year and a half.
Very much so.
But that was just the start of Torres's concerns. Roman Martinez's death also brought to light what the Army was missing. The picturesque island off the coast of North Carolina was supposed to be the site of a fun camping trip for a group of soldiers. Instead, this national park became the scene of a homicide.
Who would ever want to mess with him? He was such a good kid.
In 2020, after disappearing from a camping trip on the Cape Lookout National Seashore, the partial remains of Army Specialist Enrique Roman Martinez washed ashore a few miles from where he went missing. The only body part found was his head. Griselda Martinez is his sister.
It was the hardest thing in my whole life, and I don't know if there's anything in the world that could ever make me feel worse.
The Fort Bragg, now called Fort Liberty, soldier's death was hard enough for his family. But the subsequent investigation made them angry because they felt the Army wasn't doing enough. In 2021, his death was classified a cold case, drawing concern from Congresswoman Norma Torres of California. One big reason? The Army's Criminal Investigation Division didn't have a centralized cold case unit.
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable that we are the United States of America, that we had paid so little attention to murders that happen here at home, where our soldiers are victims in the communities where they are sent to.
It's not that they weren't being worked or attempts to resolve them weren't being made. It was just never at a headquarters centralized effort.
Last year, the Army created a new cold case unit, and we sat down with Special Agents Chris Adams and Jessica Veltri.
Preventing future cold cases is kind of the intent behind the newer forensic equipment that is in offices.
But it's the decades-old cold cases the unit is now trying to piece together. Although the Army says these cases weren't ignored in the past, the pressure to create a centralized unit had been mounting. Since the unit was created last year, the agents tell us they've been pouring through the Army's records, even though the digital inventory only dates back to 1987. So far, they've identified several dozen cold cases, a number that's likely to grow. The Army says they are currently researching cases dating back to the 1970s.
How often are you coming across cases that have been maybe not maintained?
Sure, that's not unheard of. We've come across missing documents, evidence that was destroyed, key witnesses that have deceased. These are all things that we know are part of the job, and they're challenges that we just have to overcome and do what we can with what we have.
Torres's legislation provided millions of dollars for training and instructed the Army to improve the communication and handling around homicide cases, something she says was lacking in Roman Martinez's death. The agents tell us the training and the new unit give a fresh set of eyes to stalled cases.
Allowing us to have this dedicated unit gives us continuity in our contacts. So we've formed partnerships with other agencies that may have been more challenging if we were still working in an ad hoc fashion.
And they have had success helping solve a 40-year-old case out of California where a former soldier was charged with the murder of a 5-year-old child.
Justin, his goal is to solve every unsolved homicide that the Army has. You know, that's the goal.
I really hope that they are going to do a good job. I really hope this isn't just to manage me and to try to get me to calm down, because that's not what I want.
All of the soldiers Roman Martinez was with on that camping trip were charged with crimes, from providing a false statement to wrongfully using a controlled substance. But no one was charged with homicide. Each of the soldiers is now no longer in the Army after finishing their enlistment periods. Roman Martinez's death sparked change in Washington and in the Army. The hope is it will help solve his case and others. But with no one charged in his death, Roman Martinez's family is left waiting as a mysterious death clouds this scenic retreat. In North Carolina, Reuben Jones, Spectrum News.